This is CBC Winnipeg News.
Good evening. Thank you for joining us. We begin tonight with news a bit of relief from the high cost of food may be coming for low-income Manitobans. Tomorrow, the federal government tables its budget. There are hints it will include a kind of grocery rebate, as well as more money for health care and incentives for industry to clean up its act. Catherine Cullen has more from Ottawa.
And I believe they're on sale, is that right?
The finance minister opted for a sale, pitching prudence in the pre-budget tradition of ministers buying new shoes.
So the total will be $112.94.
Okay.
How do you pay today?
I will pay with my credit card.
Managing costs is certainly a theme. CBC News has learned the budget will include another boost to lower-income Canadians, labeled a grocery rebate between about $200 and $500 for those already eligible for the GST credit. It can be spent on anything, not just food.
Groceries will certainly be part of it, but there's other things as well that we're going to continue to do to be there for Canadians.
The NDP is taking credit.
The grocery rebate is exactly what we've been fighting for, it looks like.
But Conservatives aren't impressed.
The money helps, but it's not addressing the core problem, which is out of control inflation across the board, across different products. And I think people will be able to see through that.
Another budget focus, technology to fight climate change. The United States made a massive investment in clean tech with its Inflation Reduction Act. In Parliament, the president emphasized cooperation.
Canada and the United States can do big things.
But there's risk the U.S. pulls investment away from Canada. So a source confirms the budget will have a tax credit for investing in clean tech.
It's not a level playing field right now. And I think the governments are probably trying to do is how do they start to tilt it so that we get our fair share.
Just how big will Canada go? The industry minister didn't directly answer.
We need to be ambitious. We need to seize the moments. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing.
Expect the politics around this budget to heat up. Radio Canada reports that it's going to contain a measure making it harder for any future government to axe the carbon tax, requiring big payments to business if a government chooses to do so. Catherine Cullen, CBC News, Ottawa.
And now, from the federal Liberal government about to table its budget to Manitoba and efforts to convince you the PCs are on the right track here. Members of our provincial government have been busy over the past month selling the benefits of their own spending plan. The post-budget tour is more intense this year because there is an election on the way. CBC's Bartley Kivas joins us now live in the newsroom to talk about today's whistle stop. Bartley, where were the cabinet ministers today?
Cabinet Ministers Andrew Smith and James Teitzma were in Headingley, drawing attention to money for water and sewer projects. They chose a news conference outside Headingley's water treatment plant. It was -13 with a northwest wind.
All right, good morning, everybody, and welcome. It's a sunshiny day, but kind of cool, I'm told. I know I'm not dressed for it, but that's okay.
Well, the government wanted Manitobans to know it's spending $50 million on water and sewer projects. The ministers also provided a tour of the Headingley water treatment plant. It draws water from the Assiniboine River and cleans it in several steps, including these vertical filtration membranes that don't require the use of chemicals. Now, just so you know, you don't get inside a water treatment plant every day. For security purposes, we can't even take pictures at certain angles inside Winnipeg's water treatment plant.
So they were really pulling out the stops for the media today. What else was happening?
One of us. Forgive me, Janet.
That's okay.
Another school division says that it can't make ends meet this year with the money it's getting from the province. Hanover School Division in southeastern Manitoba says it's cutting teaching positions and programs. This is part of an effort to erase a nearly $3 million deficit. Hanover joined Seven Oaks and Louis Riel school divisions in saying their revenue won't meet expenses, even with more money from the province this year and cash to make up for property tax cuts. The education minister says he's surprised at the pushback.
I think they have to take a look at their priorities and take a look what they're spending their money on.
The divisions say they're dealing with the worst inflation in decades and are no longer allowed to raise school levies. The chair of Hanover's Finance Committee says it was hard to hear what Owasco had to say.
I would say it's very disheartening Hanover School Division is very frugal with their dollars. We have the lowest admin cost in the province.
Now, I also understand we have a new provincial party leader.
Yes, the Green Party elected a new leader on Sunday, Janine Gibson, an agricultural consultant from the Steinbach area. She replaces James Bedham, a Winnipeg lawyer who led the Greens for 15 years. The party has never won a seat in the Manitoba legislature. Janet.
Thank you, Bartley. That's the CBC's Bartley Kivas reporting live from the newsroom tonight. A child has died in a house fire on a western Manitoba First Nation. Another woman was injured trying to rescue the boy. CBC's Riley Lachuk brings us more.
Firefighters were called to a home on the Sioux Valley Dakota Nation around 7 Saturday evening. On their way, they were told an 11-year-old boy was likely still inside the burning home. 7 people, 4 adults and 3 kids were inside the house when that fire started. The Sioux Valley Fire Department, as well as safety officers and other community members, tried to battle the blaze, while at the same time searching for the child. The boy was pulled from the home and rushed to hospital where he died of his injuries. A 65-year-old woman suffered serious injuries while trying to help get the young boy out of the home. She was taken to hospital where she remains. We have received a statement from Sioux Valley Chief Jennifer Bone. It reads in part, Sioux Valley Dakota Nation is devastated by the recent loss, and our community is in mourning with this traumatic event. The community and family are asking for privacy. An online fundraiser has been started to help the family with more than $8,000 raised so far. We don't know yet what caused this fire, but the RCMP says it remains under investigation. Riley Lachuk, CBC News, Winnipeg.
Manitoba RCMP are investigating the death of a 37-year-old man. They say the Manitoba First Nations Police Service was called to a home in a Pasquiac Cree Nation at 11 o'clock Saturday night. Inside, they found the man unresponsive. He was taken to hospital but died from his injuries. RCMP say the death is being investigated as a homicide pending results of the autopsy. Anyone with information is asked to contact the Manitoba First Nations Police Service or Crime Stoppers. Advocates for refugees in Manitoba say they dislike a change made to Canada-U.S. border policy while Joe Biden was recently visiting Ottawa. Late last week, during that visit, Ottawa negotiated a deal with the United States that would allow Canada to turn back migrants coming north at irregular crossing points, such as at the U.S.-Canada border near Emerson. The changes to the Safe Third Country Agreement mean the deal now applies across the entire Canada-U.S. border, not just official entry points. It means Canadian authorities can now turn asylum seekers who walk across the border back to the United States, provided they're found within 14 days of arriving in Canada. Louise Simbandumwe advocates on behalf of refugees. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
How do you feel about the change to the Safe Third Country Agreement?
Yeah, as someone who is a former refugee, it is really heartbreaking. I think that it's literally going to put people's lives in danger. The actual loophole is the Safe Third Country Agreement, because what it means is that Canada is not meeting our international obligations to provide protection to refugees. So having the Safe Third Country Agreement in place forced people to cross irregularly at irregular border crossings. The most recent change is going to make it even more difficult. So the concern is that people are going to try to cross in even more remote locations. Living in Winnipeg, knowing what the winters are like, it could have catastrophic results, injury, death. And those are all predictable, given the changes that are being made.
Why is it unsafe to return people to the United States? Why is the United States not a safe third country?
Well, I think the easiest way to explain it would be to talk about refugees that I know, who personally know, who made claims in the United States. Their claims were turned down. They were on the verge of being deported. They actually ended up making a claim in Canada and were able to stay. And so that shows the lack of symmetry between the way in which refugee claims are adjudicated between the two countries. I think we're all aware of what happened during the Trump era in the States with the separation of families and just how draconian some of their policies were. There is currently a case being put forward by 3 human rights organizations that has been heard by the Supreme Court, essentially making the argument that the Safe Third Country Agreement is unconstitutional. And in any event, having that agreement in place allows Canada to skirt our international obligations of providing safe haven for refugees.
So you're hoping that the agreement gets thrown out by the Supreme Court?
That is definitely the hope. I'm hoping that the Canadian government will do the right thing and rescind the Safe Third Country Agreement, as many of us have been asking for years and years.
Louise Sambandumwe, thank you so much for your time today.
Well, thank you so much for having me.
The Southern Chiefs organization launched its Traditional Healers program today. It will connect Indigenous peoples with elders and knowledge keepers. CBC's Nampande Lande explains.
A pipe song opens the ceremony to launch the Traditional Healers program. Elder Faylene Sutherland was one of the pipe carriers. She's seen thousands of people on their healing journey, including her own family.
For myself, I was asking for guidance and direction that we need to have a good program, that will help and benefit everyone, not only our people, but for other nations to understand that our people need the direction and support in finding our way.
Program lead Justin Courchain says the Traditional Healers program is to help Indigenous people from the 34 nations represented by the Southern Chiefs Organization, or SCO. The main goal is to connect people with their cultural heritage and traditional forms of healing, which treat the spirit, mind, body, and emotions.
The access to healers and access to ceremony, access to a holistic way of healing for our people and our nations is proven to reduce rates of problematic substance abuse, recidivism, violent behaviors, child apprehension, those rates of suicide ideation.
If someone needs help, they can reach out to the SCO. It's part of SCO's ongoing efforts to help First Nations reclaim control over their health and wellness.
It's very, very exciting. It's something that's been sorely needed for a very, very long time. So we're very excited to be able to bring this to their communities and to our nations.
The Traditional Healers will provide guidance through medicines, sweat lodges, sun dances, and other ceremonies. Louis Young, a knowledge keeper from Bloodvein First Nation, says the healers will all work together to provide support.
When I'm asked to do something as big as this, I just feel so small. And because, like I was just saying, we know only a little bit. But when we put our little bits together, we have a lot of knowledge. So, yeah, it's humbling knowing that the task is big, but we're willing to take it on.
Courchain says traditional healing is connected to ceremony in every possible way, which begins and ends with the pipe, the drum, and the rattle. Courchain says for that reason, it was important to begin and end the announcement of the Traditional Healers program in the same way. Nampande Lande, CBC News, Winnipeg.
4 puppies recently found abandoned, emaciated, and nearly frozen near LaSalle are recovering thanks to care from a volunteer foster home. Lindsay Galanders of Manitoba Underdogs Rescue says animal abandonment is a big problem in our province right now. She told the CBC's Stéphane Richard the 4 puppies were likely left near LaSalle for roughly 2 weeks.
They were emaciated, half frozen. They were found just in time. The littlest one, the runt of the litter, her name is Parsnip now. She's particularly struggling. And so it wouldn't have been much longer until we would have lost her anyways, and the others wouldn't have been far behind.
How big of a problem are abandoned pets right now in the province?
Huge. Huge. I mean, between the stray problem and then the abandonment issues that all of the rescues are seeing, it's just massive. And it's compounded by the fact that it's all happening at once. and all of the rescues. I mean, I know the Humane Society is at or over capacity. We are at or over capacity, and I think everybody in the province is struggling with that.
Gillander says we are now seeing the impact of spay and neuter programs having been paused during pandemic shutdowns, and also puppy mills that ramped up production to meet high pandemic demand for pets may now be having trouble selling the animals. 6 women got a chance to try out key roles with the Manitoba Moose yesterday.
Packages for the 2023-2024 season are now available.
They went behind the scenes in the game against the Laval Rockets, part of the Women in Sport Job Shadow program. Participants got to try their hand at marketing and communications, broadcasting, and game day production during this 2-day shadowing program. It's the second year True North Sports and Entertainment has been running this initiative. Danielle Peters got to be the PA announcer during yesterday's game.
Something I've always been passionate about. I'm in school now, so for recreation management at the University of Manitoba, and this is kind of a career path that I've been interested in, so coming here was kind of a nice foot in the door to see if this is something I'm interested in.
We've had lots of women apply for different roles within True North, and I know that our VP of People and Culture really enjoyed meeting all of the girls and said that they're all great and that she wants to bring them back as soon as possible.
How wonderful that they had that opportunity. Here's some more good news. The Cindy Clausen Recreation Complex indoor pool in Winnipeg reopens Sunday. It's been closed since last June because of mechanical repairs and upgrades. The facility's fitness center and meeting rooms reopened late last year, but the pool needed more work. It also took time to recruit and retrain lifeguards. The city says the cost of upgrades so far is more than $1.5 million. Recreation programming is now available through the Spring-Summer Leisure Guide. Ah, lovely heated indoor pool.
Yeah, just what you need on a day like this.
Right, because it was chilly. We saw in Bart's story those government ministers out there, they thought it was just like on the weekend when we could wear just a coat.
Well,
and they were a bit chilled.
They should have been prepared, right?
Perhaps. They admitted they didn't dress for the winter.
Now they probably got their forecast from their phone. Don't do that. Anyway, there's a reason. You know, and I talk about the upper level flow when we're talking about mild air in the west and cold weather here. This map really explains it. You can see the chillier blue colors. Well, I'll have to pull that map up for you in just a second. But what you see here is the lack of cloud cover because of that chilly air and because of all of that, well, just amazingly cold air that is above us. All right, here's the upper level atmosphere. The chilly air is right here, and this is what we call an upper level trough, when the jet stream kind of dives to the south and heads well to the south of us. This is the cold air, and then the upper level ridge is out to the west, and that's the milder air. There isn't much change through Tuesday, but then as we get into Wednesday and Thursday, we start to see this milder air bumping into southern Manitoba, and it tries to stick around. By the time we get into Friday, we get a little bit cooler again, and then we get much warmer as we head into the weekend. There's a bit of a catch, though. We get more cloud cover, and we might even see some wet snow by about Saturday afternoon or Sunday. In the meantime, never got above -10 today. As a matter of fact, somebody was saying to me earlier, is this like the coldest day in March we've ever had? Well, the records are down around -27, and last year on this day, we woke up to a -20, and we only got to -10 in the afternoon. So it was almost exactly the same as what we had today. And right now we're at -11. Look how the temperatures dive. They kind of hold steady through midnight, 2 a.m., and then they really dive into the morning. I think that a little bit later than that, 6 a.m. will probably be at about -20. And yeah, not much cloud around, a little bit up to the north, but there's another little disturbance out to the west of us that may bring a band of snow through the region early in the morning. But it'll likely be south of Winnipeg. And then some more snow in the far north, and we'll likely see a few scattered flurries in the afternoon here in the Red River Valley and down to the southeast. No serious amount of snow at all, just a few snowflakes. We're right back to sunshine on Wednesday. Might see more snow across the north on Wednesday, and then that system starts to spread a frontal zone into our region in the south. as we get into Thursday. So we'll start to see that little bit of wet flurry activity on Thursday afternoon. In the meantime, it is dry. It is cold. -20 will be the overnight temperature. Still around -19 in the morning. A sun cloud mix with light winds. And then the winds shift around to the northwest, 25 to 30 in the afternoon. So -8 is going to feel even colder tomorrow. And then in the long range, we do start to warm up. Few flurries possible on Thursday, and then a -4 in the sunshine on Friday.
Thanks, John.
You're welcome, Janet.
So don't put the warm stuff away just yet. Boy, what a busy weekend this was, especially at the RBC Convention Center. Car lovers there gathered to check out the 46th annual World of Wheels showcase. Now, I admit we're a little bit biased on this. The main attraction for many CBC fans and workers was a pink 1970 Dodge Challenger. We know a fact that Miss Centennial Manitoba sat in that vehicle for the first time this weekend in more than 5 decades. She posed in the car wearing the same dress she wore when she sat at it in 1970, right after she'd won the pageant. That car, and the reason we love it so much, is because it was restored by CBC's own Pat Kanuga. If you listen to Information Radio in the mornings, you'll know Pat's voice. We sent our videographer, Walter Burnell, to take a look.
Oh, it's amazing. I mean, it looks probably better than the day it came out of the factory at Dodge Main in Detroit.
In this 1970 Dodge Challenger RT convertible, the only one we believe painted in factory Panther pink. I had known the whereabouts of the car throughout the 90s and into the 2000s, and I kept in touch with the owner a little bit off and on. It was a body shop owner who bought the car in 92, and then I bought it from him in 2019. So I kind of just kept tabs on where it was, and I ran into the owner at a charity event that I was volunteering at. He was there, I was there, we talked, and we ended up taking about a week to do a deal in September of 2019. And here is Darlene Meyer, Miss Centennial Manitoba. She is 53 years through her reign of Miss Centennial. We thought we would duplicate this photo 53 years later.
I can't believe it was 53 years ago that this was the car chosen for me to drive me around Flat Bonnie after my title as Miss Centennial Manitoba.
My name is Evelyn Funk. The part of the story that I was involved in was the fact that my fiance was driving the car. He was with Penner Dodge at the time, and he had the car for the summer, and we drove it around Manitoba for the summer, enjoyed it, and we got engaged in it, and it holds dear to my heart.
Today's been amazing, seeing the interest that people had about the history of this car and the fact it's got a specific Winnipeg and Manitoba history.
It's a nice car. It'll be nice to drive it. Pat promised to take me for a ride this summer, so it'll be fun.
Today makes the 1,500 hours I have into this car, I'm guessing 1,500 hours, all worthwhile. It was fabulous seeing the response, and it was fabulous having Miss Centennial Manitoba here.
Coming up, Israel's government is delaying a contentious plan to overhaul the country's judicial system. The proposal itself has been met with this: mass protests. We've got more after the break. Facing a new wave of protests, Israel's leader Benjamin Netanyahu signaled a pause on a contentious judicial overhaul plan today. While the prime minister says the delay is meant to seek compromise, protesters are gearing up to keep up the fight against an issue they don't see as going away. Margaret Evans has more from Jerusalem.
The tide of demonstrations against the Israeli government's efforts to tamper with the independence of its judiciary has seemed increasingly unstoppable. Here, the river of discontent winding its way through Jerusalem streets. Women donned the garb of Margaret Atwood's handmaids, fearful Israel's hard-line national religious government will extend the power of religious courts at their expense.
It says it's dangerous to drive without brakes.
Alon Doris is 14.
Just because we are children, we can it doesn't mean we can't understand how a country becomes a dictatorship.
The atmosphere here can almost feel party-like, but make no mistake, there is real underlying anger and fear here. Just yesterday, one of the opposition leaders said Israel has never come this close to breaking apart.
We've come to a point where we realize that the polarization within Israeli society is huge.
A nationwide strike called by Israel's largest union added to the sense of crisis and the pressure on the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, who finally appeared before the cameras to say he will suspend his proposed legislation for now, unwilling, he said, to allow a rift in the nation. And he thanked the pro-government supporters who took to the streets this evening in large numbers. They insist they're not the ones trying to derail democracy.
We got the majority of the votes, and we have 64 of 56 in the Knesset. This practically gives us the right to make laws, right, as we see fit.
It feels like the conservative way of thinking and the way of life is not being taken care by the elite.
The National Union has now called off another planned strike, but people are still out on the streets, and there is a sense that this is a crisis not averted, but merely delayed. Margaret Evans, CBC News, Jerusalem.
At least 10 people were seriously injured in Calgary today when a house exploded this morning just before 9 a.m. Officials say 6 of the victims have life-threatening injuries. This neighborhood in Calgary's northeast is now a scene of devastation.
We have one home that's completely destroyed, plus 2 that were on fire from exposure. We also have 8 other homes that have been damaged by this. If you see in there, there's actually debris everywhere. It was quite a significant explosion.
Video that was submitted to CBC gives a sense of the destructive power that tore through the city's Marlborough neighborhood. What's left of the house that blew up is structurally unstable, so crews have not been able to search it yet to see if there are more victims inside. Police say arson investigators are working with the fire department to determine if this explosion was the result of any criminal wrongdoing. Thousands of people gathered in Edmonton today for the public ceremony honoring 2 police officers who died in the line of duty. Constables Travis Jordan and Brett Ryan were killed almost 2 weeks ago when they were responding to a domestic violence call. Today they were remembered at a regimental funeral.
Travis was a stellar man. He showed up for people at every moment of his career with care and compassion and without hesitation. Even in the most challenging circumstances, Brett was an outstanding man and a valued member of our family. He was driven, focused, intelligent, and relentless in his service. They were both the best of us.
Many of the speakers today broke into tears talking about the 2 men. Thousands of officers from Alberta and right across the country packed the hall, as you can see. The city's mayor and members of the provincial government were also there. But look at this. Look at this parade. Earlier in the day, thousands of officers, thousands more, marched through the city streets. Bystanders tied blue ribbons through the city to honor the officers. Canada's Auditor General tabled 4 reports today that looked at the federal government's performance on a range of issues. The extensive findings point to some gaps and barriers. In one case, a demonstrable lack of clear results. Travis Danraj brings us some of the main highlights.
It's Report Card Day.
These audits are important.
Canada's Auditor General delivered 4 performance reports to the House of Commons, and the grades were mixed. On progress being made to connect rural communities to broadband internet and cell service, Karen Hogan says a lot more needs to be done.
Internet connectivity in rural and remote areas remains below 60% and below 43% on First Nations reserves.
Hogan calls it a digital divide, excluding some from participating in the online economy, accessing internet education, medical services, and more. Lack of access was also the focus of a report related to travelers with disabilities and moving toward a barrier-free Canada. While Hogan said progress is being made, she called out Via Rail and the Canadian Transportation Agency, saying they need to do better in training employees and increasing access to online portals.
I acknowledge the Auditor General's recommendation to increase consultations with persons with disabilities on how to improve their travel experience.
But her most scathing criticism was left for the government's efforts towards gender equity abroad. Global Affairs Canada spends approximately $3.5 billion yearly on development projects that benefit women and girls. But the AG says they couldn't demonstrate the programs are working.
These weaknesses are not new. They were flagged in a departmental internal audit in 2021.
The minister in charge pushed back, but also said his department will do better.
The information is there. What we need to do is be able to aggregate and get that information. Where we don't, we need to improve. That's what the Auditor General has noted.
It's clear that the government's policy here is to talk a lot about the importance of gender, to make that part of their political discourse here, but they don't care enough to actually measure the results.
There was some good news from the auditor on a 4th report. Karen Hogan says the project behind me, the massive $5 billion renovation of Centre Block, is going well. Spending so far is under budget. But as construction ramps up, she says an eagle eye is needed on the books in order to complete the project on budget by 2030. Travis Danraj, CBC News, Ottawa.
Well, this was the kind of day Britain's tabloid press would normally delight in. A prince and a major pop star both in the same London courtroom. But today there was no glee for the press because it was a newspaper that was on the hot seat. CBC's Abby Kuavasan has this story from London.
Prince Harry making a surprise visit at the High Court in central London today. He is one of the several high-profile claimants in this case, accusing Associated Newspapers, which is one of the largest UK media publishers, of unlawfully gathering information by hiring private investigators to plant devices in people's homes and cars, by offering money to corrupt police officers to get information that they would not have otherwise received. Prince Harry, of course, has previously spoken about the tabloid press here in the United Kingdom, citing them as being one of the main reasons that he moved his family from the United Kingdom to the U.S. Now, a judge here will hear evidence over the course of the next 4 days before deciding whether this case should go ahead. Prince Harry may return to the United Kingdom in May in relation to another libel case where he's also accused Associated Newspapers. On this trip, though, he will not meet with King Charles nor Prince William, according to palace sources. He may see them in May for the coronation. He and the Duchess of Sussex have been invited, but it's not yet clear whether they'll attend. Abby Kuavasan, CBC News, London.
There has been another deadly mass shooting at a school in the United States. This time, a private school in Nashville, Tennessee. We'll bring you the very latest after the break. A woman wielding 2 assault-style rifles and a pistol killed 3 9-year-olds today. Students at a private Christian school in Nashville, Tennessee. Police say she also killed 3 adults in their 60s. She was a 28-year-old Nashville woman killed by police.
We know that she was armed with at least 2 assault-type rifles and a handgun.
The shooting happened at a private Christian grade school attended by about 200 students from preschool to grade 6. Police say the shooter is believed to be a former student. She entered the building through a side entrance, moving from the first to the second floor, shooting victims along the way. A police official says the shooter was confronted by a group of 5 officers in the second floor lobby type area. There is video from the school, which is now being reviewed. Let's switch gears and look at the Manitoba forecast with meteorologist John Sauder.
Yeah. I guess if you like sunshine,
I do.
A pretty decent day right across the province. We're going to start by looking at some temperatures here, and boy, sure a lot colder than it should be. Even at this time of day, at this time of year, we should be up around 3 or 4 degrees right now. So 10 to 15 degrees below the seasonal norms. We got to -9 at the Forks. That's the temperature right now at the Forks, -12 down the road in Morris and up around Lake Manitoba. And Brandon currently sits at -11, Melita at -12. Now, it is a little bit milder down through the southeast corner of the province and out into northwestern Ontario. Sunshine, it reacts to the forested areas and just soaks up that heat a little bit more. So on a sunny day, even in the wintertime, you can have warmer temperatures where there is that darker forest for the sun to sort of absorb those rays. And as we look at the north, temps are pretty much the same, with the exception of Gillam and Churchill. And you'll start to see a little bit of snow across the far north and especially the northeast. You can see that developing system right here. It'll bring some snow into areas like Gillam and Churchill for tomorrow. But the rest of us right now under clear skies. Forecast conditions then for tonight in northwestern Ontario will stay with either partly cloudy or relatively clear skies, but it is cold, -19 to -22, so much colder than it should be for this time of year. The southeast, we're getting into the -20s again, much like this morning, with partly cloudy skies all the way down to -23 in Barons River. As we look at the southwest, a chance of light snow overnight in the Brandon region. And really, this is a system that overnight and early tomorrow morning runs south of the Trans-Canada. So Morden and Winkler and maybe even Carman, you may start to see a few flurries in the morning hours. A lot of that happens in the afternoon for the rest of us, and I'll show you that in a second. These are the overnight lows across the north, as low as -26 in Lynn Lake. And -24 is for Gillam and for Churchill. And then tomorrow, temps rebound into the -single digits and generally a sun cloud mix here, but a lot more cloud across the far north. Light snow starting in the morning, carrying on through the afternoon in Churchill. And for Gillam, we're looking at a chance of flurries, at least. A lot of that will be in the second half of the day. And then in the south, we are looking at some snow in the morning around Dauphin, Portage, Morden. I doubt it's even going to be as far north as Portage La Prairie. Afternoon, we might see a few snowflakes here in the Red River Valley and to areas east, but temperature still colder than normal by a lot. But a high tomorrow around -8, a chance of afternoon flurries in Kenora, and -7 tomorrow. We could see the same kind of weather up around Red Lake. Now, you may have seen this online, or you may have been alluded to this on Friday night, but some very, very deadly weather moved through Mississippi on Friday evening. What I've done is I've taken the radar and backtracked it a little bit. Here's Jackson, Mississippi. Just northwest of Jackson is a town called Rolling Fork. And the tornado went through there at about 8 o'clock on Friday night. And it wasn't just one tornado. It was a tornado that became many tornadoes and lasted and affected many, many towns in Mississippi. So even today, search and rescue efforts are continuing in Mississippi after these deadly tornadoes ripped through the region on Friday night.
I can't get that out of my head. Every 45, 50 minutes, it just come back to me. You know, it's come to me that I'll never forget it for the rest of my life. And 5 minutes later, it was over. And I realized then that I was still here, and all I could hear was a bunch of hollering and screaming, and, you know, we're here, help, help, you know, and it's sad. It was sad. It was a sad situation, but I thank God that I'm here.
At least 25 people are dead in Mississippi and 1 in Alabama. Hundreds of people have been displaced. This tornado and set of tornadoes has been described as a long-track tornado. It is a confirmed EF4 tornado with winds well over 350 kilometers per hour. It was 1 kilometer wide and tore through an area almost 100 kilometers long. U.S. President Joe Biden has declared a state of emergency in Mississippi and deployed federal resources to help in some of the worst-hit towns. But the state's governor is asking people to still be vigilant because more severe weather just like this is in the forecast.
Thank you, John. Let's hope they don't get hit with more bad weather. Still ahead, a story to make you, smile and think about healing. A local Anishinaabe woman is teaching residential school survivors how they can help themselves heal by making medicine dolls. The comfort in healing in just a moment. How do you bring comfort to people who survived brutal childhood trauma? One local Anishinaabe woman, Diane Meteorologist, has been running workshops teaching residential school survivors how to make medicine dolls. The Southern Chiefs organization hosted Diane at a gathering we visited back in February.
Yeah, she's beautiful. She's beautiful. My name is Diane Meteorologist, and we are here at the medicine doll workshop. We are making these medicine dolls. They're maybe like about almost like maybe a little bit of a foot long or more. These are like healing dolls. We make the dolls, and then we also make these dresses out of different colors and some hair from the yarn. With my daughter and I, we decided to start this medicine doll project and make dolls for children in foster care, and do workshops for survivors of residential school. And it's sort of reclaiming a tradition that was taken away or not there anymore because of the colonial violence. These dolls are sort of these adult survivors, and it's kind of healing the child within.
My name is Evelyn Seaton from Wew'suwet'en. It just has a lot of meaning because I think of my grandmothers when I think of homemade toys, and because my mother used to make our dolls for us, not like this, but with towels and a body, and that was it. But being able to make this is great meaning to me because I have grandchildren too now. It's very nurturing because it's something that I did. It's almost like when I had my children.
My name is Carolyn Razo. I'm Anishinaabe, meaning I'm a woman. And also this brings back a good memory of my family as well as my mother. My mother attended residential school, and she said she left about the age of 4. And when she was at home, her mother used to make actual little dolls. They were half the size, my mom said the size of the hand. And they would make them out of pillowcases and use whatever remnants they had around the home. And then when she went to boarding school at age 4, she said she became lonely. So when the young woman wanted comfort, they were allowed, and they would find remnants around the boarding schools, and they would make themselves little dolls. We're reminded about our relatives that attended residential school, the 60s school, and any other way, like through CFS, that this connection of family, but also remembering that we can come together and build those connections from our community as well in these workshops. And I'm gonna give it to my first granddaughter. I don't have a granddaughter yet. I have 3 grandsons, so I'm planning to be that grandmother of a girl.
There was one important doll that we made was 2 years ago when they found that 215 children in Kamloops, and there was grandmothers that went there, and they said, you know, we're leaving on Monday, and they said on Friday, they said, you got 2 days to make a doll, and I was like, what? I stayed up till like 2, 3 in the morning sewing away at the doll, but I was very emotional, and I cried because we just found out about the 215 children, and I had these visions, and I was getting really tired, and I kept on hearing children, and then my head was kind of bopping, but I just kept sewing because I knew that this doll had to be done by morning, and I had these visions of these children playing with the doll and sharing it. And so that was the most special doll.
So beautiful. Thanks, Diane, for sharing the story. Your 7-day forecast and daily lift still to come.
Well, temperature-wise, tomorrow will be very similar to today. And we could see a little bit of a flurry in the afternoon. Sunny Wednesday, warming up a little bit Thursday, but again, a chance of flurries. And by the time we get to the weekend, yes, we are back above zero, but there is a chance for some wet snow on Sunday. It looks like a messy weekend ahead, actually. Just in time for Easter, a happy ending for an injured bunny.
Oh, injured bunny.
Yeah.
He spent 44 days in rehabilitation care and has now been released back to the wild. Here is your daily lift. Prairie Wildlife Rehabilitation Center gave this update on its eastern cottontail. This video on the center's Facebook page shows the moment the bunny was released. hopping happily away. The center posted that the rabbit was found on the side of the road, motionless. They suspect he might have been hit by a car.
Oh.
After, well, 7 weeks in care, the bunny, as you can see, is now healthy and ready to head back out into the cold and somehow lay Easter eggs, which I don't understand at all, because I thought chickens did the egg thing.
Well, it's different with the Easter bunny.
Well, because they come out like with the gooey, yummy candy in the middle
chocolate,
and chocolate foil and... Bye.
Good night, everybody.